everyone. My name is Lisa Black, and I am one of the Rogue Women writers. We're a group of 8 thriller writers whose backgrounds range from intelligence officers to cops to psychotherapists to journalists. To let you know how this is going to go, for you participants in the Zoom room, you will be in the gallery during the reading, so please type any questions or comments in the chat bar. Those of you joining us on Facebook Live, please comment, and the comments will be monitored and relayed to the authors in real time. The authors will be reading only briefly, so we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. All of the books discussed here tonight should be available through your local bookstore. 4 lucky registrants for this event will win a free book from one of these authors, and those winning emails will be announced at the end of the event, and the winners will be responsible for contacting us to get their prize, so stay tuned to the end. As I said, my name is Lisa Black, and I'm the author of 19 novels featuring forensic specialists, which also happens to be my day job. I am based here in Florida, working with my local police department, and I'm delighted to be emceeing this event. So without further ado, I will get to introducing our authors. Jeffrey Deaver literally needs no introduction. He's an international #1 best-selling author. His novels are sold in 150 countries and translated into 25 languages. He has served 2 terms as president of Mystery Writers of America, was recently named a Grand Master of MWA, and he and our own rogue, Isabella Maldonado, have created an exciting new series. In the second book in their series, The Grave Artist, a wedding turns into a hunt for the honeymoon killer, who then decides that Homeland Security agent Carmen Sanchez and her partner, security expert Jake Herring, should be his next target. Now, Jeffrey's favorite drink is Crown Royal, old-fashioned, and his favorite snack is water crackers and cheese of any kind, like aged Gouda and drunken goat. So, question for you. Somehow in the multiple times I've encountered you, I miss the fact that you used to be an attorney. So what kind of an attorney? Something exciting like criminal law, or more like municipal watering codes?
I was an attorney for some years, and I write crime books now. So people say, "Well, Jeff, you must have been a criminal attorney." And I say, "Well, I'll tell you what. I represented large multinational banks in financing deals. So you draw your own conclusions about the legality of my clients."
Okay, I will. So rogue woman Isabella Maldonado was the first Latina to attain the rank of captain in the Fairfax County Police Department just outside DC, and is a graduate of the FBI National Academy in Quantico, and she retired as Commander of Special Investigations and Forensics. Her best-selling FBI Special Agent Nina Guerrera series is soon to be a Netflix feature film starring Jennifer Lopez. Her new character Carmen's favorite snack is pomegranate guacamole with fresh cilantro, minced jalapeno, and chopped red onion. Homemade tortilla chips are a must. And we see Isabella modeling that snack as we see. And she likes Carmen's favorite drink is Casa del Sol Tequila Anejo by Eva Longoria. And she drinks it neat. Are you drinking it neat?
No, I made a margarita with mine.
Oh, man. So I have gotten a little quiet revenge on some family members by making versions of them less than sympathetic in my books. Is the character of Selena based on anyone?
No, she's really not. She's just a complication. And as we have complications in our lives. So she represents that.
Okay. That's Isabella's story, and she's sticking to it.
Yeah.
Lou Berney of Oklahoma City was fired from approximately 9 different jobs between the ages of 12 and 19. Since then, though, he has won the Edgar, Hammett, Barry, McCavity, Lefty, and Anthony Awards, and has been a finalist 3 times for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize. In his new book, Crooks, he takes readers on a wild ride with the Mercurios, family of 7. Each one is versed in theft, burglary, grift, and scamming, as they are devoted to each other without ever saying so. Lou's drink of choice is a Buddy Mercurio Negroni. 1 ounce gin, 1 ounce sweet vermouth, 1 ounce Campari, and another ounce gin because you only live once. So
Sometimes a couple ounces. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. Who's counting?
who's counting, right?
So practically all your books are about crooks, either organized ones like a mafia capo in November Road, or ones a little less farther down the food chain like Getaway Driver Shake. So how do you know so much about the daily life on the wrong side of the law?
I don't know if I know that through personal experience. I want to state for the record, but I do know that I'm most interested in characters who are allowed to break the rules. I don't think I have the patience like other great writers I admire in this room to write characters who have to follow procedure. Just I like them going off the rails, and that's what I enjoy as a writer.
Cool. And ALYSSA Maxwell married into her book research, as it turned out, and learned the history of Newport, Rhode Island from the inside out. Though she lives in Florida with her husband, part of her stays with those Gilded Age mansions and the people who once yielded so much influence in this country in New England. The first book in her series, Murder at the Breakers, was made into a Hallmark TV movie. In her current book, Murder at ARLEIGH, writer and Vanderbilt relative Emma and her husband attend a wedding at one of those mansions. While there, Emma's cousin pulls her aside and asks for Emma's help, convinced her husband is trying to kill her. As for Alyssa's favorite drink, those crisp fall days in New England are perfect for hot apple cider flavored with spices and port wine. Not so crisp here in Florida, but on the other hand, I have AC. So, yeah. So how much of your husband's family history did you know before one of you proposed? And does he ever accuse you of marrying him just to get a book out of it?
Yeah, well, that happened about, oh God, I don't know, 20, 30 years before I decided to write this series. So, yeah, I did not marry him for his Newport knowledge. And actually, I'm in California now. I'm not in Florida anymore, but it's just as hot. It's just so. Yeah, but all those years ago when I was sitting around with my in-laws, at the dinner table, whatever, I had no idea I was researching books, but I was, because I bring all that stuff, those little nuances about life in Newport. I brought it all to the books, to the series.
It's amazing. So now we're going to go back around to our authors, and they're going to read a short excerpt from their book, and I'm going to have a few questions for them, and then we'll go on to the next book. And then we'll come back at the end with audience questions and round robins and all that kind of fun kind of stuff. So Jeff, what are you going to be reading for us tonight?
This will be a cheerful little happy passage about Bambi and bunnies. Oh no, that's what I'm reading to my granddaughter. That's something else. This is from The Grave Artist, our latest Sanchez and Heron book that Isabella and I have put together. It just came out last week. And if we're ready to go, let's see what's going to happen between the pages. Damon Gar was dressed for the occasion. Dark Italian suit, white shirt, burgundy tie with perfectly barbered hair and pear skin, smooth shave. Inconspicuous, as always when creating his tableaus. No one would have paid him much mind. He seemed like any other guest at the reception, one of the three happening at the venue right at the moment, which offered wonderful views of Los Angeles far below the perch in Hollywood Hills. Still, he remained hidden in the vegetation and edged closer, 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 yet to overhear the groom offer to get a drink for himself and his new bride. The woman laughed again, saying that she'd already had too much, but he waved away the insincere protest and rose, promising to return soon with brandies. Anticipation quickened Damon's pulse. He'd spent 2 hours hidden behind the plantings, listening to bad music and worse toasts, waiting for an opportunity like this. Now, he slipped a pair of blue latex gloves from a plastic bag in his back pocket, snapping them on. He checked the distance between the bench and the bar, calculating how long it would take the groom to reach the destination via a flagstone path overlooking a large koi pond 30 feet below. The couple would be separated for less than 5 minutes. It was time to act. Now, Damon picked up what he'd spotted earlier, a landscaping stone roughly the size of a small cantaloupe. Remaining behind the trees, he swiftly closed the distance to the waiting bride, noting the moonlight glistening off her dark hair. She looked ephemeral, a vision in white. He clutched the rock tighter and walked past her. The groom's black tuxedo was hard to see when he moved into the shadows, but his steps were unhurried, and Damon had no trouble catching up to him. This was the tricky part. Timing, as they say, is everything. Damon darted a glance around the area, no sign of anyone. He sped up, raised the rock high, and brought it down in a sweeping arc onto the top of the groom's head. A satisfying snap told him the skull had cracked. The man crumpled to the ground. Now time for stage 2. After turning the stone, tossing the stone into the koi pond, he squatted to rifle through the unconscious groom's clothing, found the cell phone, and pocketed it. Another quick look around assured him that there were no witnesses. He heaved the groom over the guardrail.
A moment later, he heard a thud, then a splash. Damon moved to the edge and peered over the precipice. In the moon's glow, he made out a figure sprawled in the shallow water among the jagged stones. Luckily, the body had landed face down. If the blow and the fall hadn't killed him, he would soon drown. No extra effort needed on Damon's part. Now for the final phase. He pulled the man's cell phone from his pocket and checked to see if he'd used Plan A or Plan B. If it was a model that let you open the camera app without unlocking the unit, he'd take several pictures of the beautiful view, then hit the button to swap lenses so that it was on selfie mode. If it was locked, he'd leave the phone near the cliff as if the groom had dropped it and fallen while trying to retrieve it for the selfie. This was part of the thrill for him, the challenge of planning what he could but relying on sheer cunning to adapt to unexpected circumstances. He felt it was this skill, constantly honed, that made him successful. He tapped the screen, which allowed him to access the camera. Plan A, then. He got 4 good pictures, reverse lenses, then tossed the phone over the side. He didn't throw it hard, making sure it landed on the rocks, not in the water. Slipping the gloves away, Damon strolled back toward the hotel with unhurried steps. He didn't have to wait long, 10 minutes, for the sound of shouting, the pounding of footsteps, and the wail of a siren. He joined the throng on the lower level garden where the koi pond was located. A shiver of pleasure ran through him when he witnessed the expressions of horror as onlookers watched rescue workers hurry to the body. Within minutes, their urgent movements became methodical. There was no need to rush. He eavesdropped on 2 police officers talking nearby. They concluded that the groom had wanted to take a selfie near the edge of the cliff with the moon over the city. The guy clearly had too much to drink and leaned back too far against the guardrail. Such a shame. Damon stayed long enough to watch the bride, now widow, push past the workers, drop to her knees, and embrace the body. Blood staining the front of the satin gown precisely as he'd imagined earlier. Exhilarated, he walked to the parking lot to collect his car, tucked away in a spot not covered by security cameras. Damon Gar was pleased. If there was any phrase to describe the evening, he decided, it was this: a good start.
Very interesting. Okay, I have questions for you both, but I'm going to start with Jeffrey. And, a common shortcut that in shows like NCIS is that labs have databases of everything that exists, like lotion that's handmade only at a boutique in South Beach. So viewers like me might suspect that the digital wizardry we see on investigative dramas is simply another shortcut. So since your character is a hacker, how realistic are the things that Jake can do?
Well, I have a bit of a history, not as a hacker, I add very quickly, but in writing books that are geared to scaring the socks off my readers. I started in 1999 using technology as a basically a device to write scary books. I had a hacker that used AOL dial-up. Well, it was a fake AOL. I didn't want to get sued, but it was a
Yes.
dial-up modem to hack in 1999. And I do that crazy noise they made, like that sort of thing. But with each, my every third or fourth book, I've relied on the terrors of the internet and the dark web, data mining. I mean, artificial intelligence. Oh my God, I'm in heaven now. And Isabella, in crafting our book, have actually, created both good and bad people in the world of technology and artificial intelligence.
True, very true. So, Isabella, why did you have Carmen and Jake have a past relationship before the series even started, rather than being able to start out as complete unknowns to each other? As a writer, I would think that would be easier because then they could learn about each other as the audience does.
No, we both agreed that it would be much more fun if their relationship was fraught. And it's one of these things where the relationship, we kind of we keep it something of a mystery in the first book, and then toward the middle of that book we kind of really expose what the problem is between the two of them. But it's all about layering in the tension and conflict. And so they already have built-in tension and conflict because she is in law enforcement, and as Lou was alluding to earlier, she has to follow the rules. It's all about procedure, procedure, procedure. And Jake he was formerly a black hat hacker and then turned into a white hat hacker. But to him, rules are just mere suggestions. He doesn't really care about them. She has to constantly remind him that there's this pesky thing called the Constitution, and that if we don't follow it, then all the cases will be thrown out in court. And so that right there is a constant source of tension. And so then layering it in more, they have a history and it's not pleasant.
That's a good point. Very, very interesting. So, Jeffrey, tell us about being an intrusionist, a word that still comes up because I Googled, only as being related to a 19th century church administration. So, although wouldn't Jake be an anti-intrusionist because
Well,
he
that would
doesn't
have,
want?
yeah, that was going to be our first theme, a book set in, we're going to set it in a 19th century church, and then we moved from the tequila and Crown Royal and got serious about it. Well, the thing about Jake is, remember, he was a black hat hacker. He was intrusionist extraordinaire, and now he's gone over to the other side. We would say the good side, and he lectures, and he's an activist. He teaches at a school that is basically Cal, University of California at Berkeley, that is very conscious of human rights, rights to privacy, and so forth. And he gets on his high horse about that and lectures and talks to people
Mhm.
about it. In fact, when we meet him, he is in and when he and Carmen come together after these years, much to both of their collective dismay, he is lecturing on domestic abuse, which he sees as perhaps one of the more perfidious forms of intrusion, because we're all wary of the government, of these scams, these hackers. We've seized your computer, give me a gift card and we'll release it, all
Yeah.
that kind of nonsense. And but his theory to the class is, well, we let all our defenses down when it comes to people who are in our lives, the people we love, our spouses, our family, and so forth.
Mhm.
And that's the most dangerous form of intrusion. And I'll say, I'm not going to belabor this, but Isabella, in our collective books and in our individual books, we want them to be about something more, so that when the reader walks away, there's a thought that stays with them. And it may be that, intrusion in our lives, whether it's domestic abuse or whether it's incursion by the government, by corporations, by insurance companies, or whatever, something we ought to be aware of. And so there's, we're not on a soapbox, but just,
Mhm.
we want readers to think a little bit.
Good point. So, Isabella, you earned an expert medal in shooting at
Mhm.
Quantico, but what was your favorite part of Quantico? I mean, I was there once and it was like
Mhm.
coming from the old coroner's office in Cleveland, it was like seeing how the other half lives. And I just loved the long glass hallways with the trees on one side and all this artwork on the other. It's like we had no artwork at the coroner's office. And I went back to work and said, we need a Zen garden. We need like someplace to come and de-stress. But anyway, what was your favorite part of Quantico?
Well, fortunately, at the National Academy, I was able to live there for 3 months. So, in the dorm, with roommates and, and all that. And so, actually, when we finished, I got 15 hours of credit at the University of Virginia. So it was like a college course.
Mhm.
And I love that because I love, academia and that sort of thing. But one of my truly a highlight for me was studying with the BAU. They had instructors that were with the BAU that put on an entire, I mean, you would take several classes, and one of them was about serial killers. And because we were all executive law enforcement in there, nothing was held back. I mean, we watched the videos and listened to the recordings and everything of them actually interviewing some of these really well-known serial killers and some also not well-known, really digging down into the psyche of what it's like, what they think like, and then also hearing them tell their stories of what it's like to investigate these kind of people and the extreme toll that it takes. And so I made sure that I, share that in all the stories I tell.
That must have been amazingly helpful in writing books. You
Fascinating too.
know,
Hmm. Yeah.
really getting all the real life details on serial killers. But
Mhm.
also, I know you're a dog mom, but in this book, you have Caliber the cat. So did you guys arm wrestle over what pet to choose?
Well, I guess we figured that felines were on neutral ground because Isabella has one breed, I have another breed, and we figured so neither of them, both of whom help us write the books. We didn't want to offend anybody, so we thought we'd go to the Switzerland of animals, and that's a cat.
Well, also, I can tell you from having worked in law enforcement for all those years, and when I was single and on call 24/7, 365 days a year, I couldn't
Hmm.
have a dog because
Yeah.
they require constant attention. So, for a single homicide detective, as this guy was that owned the cat, a cat, or maybe a gerbil or a spider
Yeah.
was the only thing that was realistic for him to have as a pet.
That's a very good point. That's a good point. You can leave a cat a bowl of food and some water and they'll be fine. So, what is happening with, I have to ask, what's happening with the Netflix series with Jennifer Lopez?
Oh, that, yeah, yeah, for me. Well, you know how it is. Everything in Hollywood is kind of, it's just hurry up and wait, right?
Yeah.
So, that's all. That's really kind of the only update there.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll hope for better news soon. Um, okay. I don't think I had any other questions for you, but I am sure our uh, our readers are going to come up. Our readers and listeners are going to come up with some. So let's go over to Lou and hear from Crooks.
This is a novel that covers a family over the course of 40 years, and this is the very beginning. This is kind of where it all starts, though, in the early days. So it's in his blood. You don't believe him? Listen to this. Buddy and Mercurio's father worked for the Chicago outfit during the Depression, running a network of books and keeping the local precinct cops in line. Before that, Buddy's grandfather handled Al Capone's bootlegging operation. Yes, that Al Capone. Before that, back in Naples, Buddy's great-grandfather was capo for the preeminent Camorra clan in Campania. Before that, who knows? A Mercurio probably sold counterfeit Michelangelos to gullible popes. A Mercurio probably supplied dice to the Roman legions and took a healthy cut of the action. Mercurios don't play by the rules, Buddy tells anyone who will listen. Mercurios make up their own rules, follow their own laws. They're born pirates, outlaws, rogues, desperados. It's in their blood. Buddy's father is killed in Ardennes, the Battle of the Bulge, when Buddy is 6 years old. His mother remarries and moves the family to St. Louis. Those are not happy years for Buddy. The family bounces around from Coldwater Flat to Coldwater Flat, each one smaller and more squalid than the last. Buddy's stepfather drinks away whatever money he managed to earn, burning trash or housing down slaughterhouse walls. A bum, a loser. So Buddy's mother beats Buddy and his brothers. Does that make sense? Not to Buddy, it doesn't. His mother hammers them with a wooden spatula until the bruises bloom on the backs of their thighs. She goes about it solemnly, devoutly, daily, like she's saying the rosary. Buddy's almost expelled freshman year of high school for breaking into gym lockers, but he talks his way out of that jam. He's almost expelled sophomore year for losing his temper and breaking a punk's nose, but he talks his way out of that jam too. The principal likes him. Teachers too, even though Buddy barely squeaks by in most of his classes. Buddy knows when to crack wise and when to shut up. You have to pick your spots.
That explains it. Really is in his blood. You can hardly blame him for that. So in this book, you start out telling about the family, especially the parents, and then the children get old enough to start to go their separate ways, and then they each have a story, have a wildly different adventure than the other ones. And then you kind of bring them back at the, towards the end, and they come back together. What made you decide to structure the story that way?
I think I was really interested just by the idea of family and how they affect us as individuals over time. I think the older I get, the more I start realizing there are parts of my character that were fixed when I was 3 years old, 5 years old, and that my sisters sort of, shaped me in a way that whether I liked it or not. And I think that's a really interesting thing to play with in the crime genre of like, okay, do you embrace your heritage as a criminal, or do you try to escape it? Can you escape it? And all those sort of questions. It led me to want to cover a large period of time and see how these characters developed.
That's interesting. You said in an interview your sister liked to play school, so you learned to read a lot sooner than normal, whether you wanted to or not.
Yeah, and one of the things they would do, in fact, my sisters, this is another thing I realized. I hated playing school. I was 3 years old and they were teaching me to read and write it in the middle of the summers. But they would make some concessions to me by taking me to interesting places to play school. One of those places was the roof of our garage. So they took me up to the roof of our garage to play school. And my mom got home and almost had a heart attack when she saw her 3-year-old son on the roof of an A-frame garage. And I think what I learned from that is I think, my sisters taught me to be kind of fearless and reckless, if you want to put it that way. And that's kind of, as a writer, it's a pretty reckless profession. You don't go into being a writer for the money. And so I think, you just start learning things about yourself that chart back a long ways.
That's an interesting insight. Because you're right, you do have to be fearless to be a writer. You have to break out of your mold whether you want to or not. Yeah. In your books, since you use the terms for some of your novels, how good of a poker player are you?
Oh, I'm terrible. But I'm also very smart. I know how terrible I am. So I never get into a poker game over my head. The people you want to get in a poker game with are the people who think they're good and aren't, but I'm bad and I know it. So that's my gift.
That's true. That's important to know. A man's got to know his limitations. I say that all the time. So you've won quite a number of awards, including just recently at BoucherCon, the best paperback original mystery novel for your book Double Barrel Bluff. Mm-hmm. And I know because I was there. So do you have a favorite award? And if not, do you have a favorite book? Is there one that particularly is special to you?
I love all my awards. I got to say, it never gets old to win an award. I will say my favorite probably is the Hammett, in terms of the hardware. It's this great. The Hammett Award is this great sculpture of a very tall, thin man with the head of a Maltese falcon, and it's really cool. And so that's probably my favorite piece of hardware.
Oh. And do you have a favorite book?
I think it might be Crooks. I think it may be my most recent one was my most joyful experience writing a book, and I like loved every minute of it. And so I think, knock on wood, that might be my favorite.
They're very fun because all the siblings are so totally different that you can go in so many different directions. So, and we touched on this before, but your books like November Road and Gunshot Street and Dark Ride, if your characters aren't mafia members and they're people who live on the fringe, who don't have a white picket fence or a job at the pension plan, and they don't seem to have much of a plan at all. So is that what makes them fun to write, that they're totally unpredictable?
That's certainly part of it. I will say I don't ever set out trying to write a certain kind of character. It's just sort of those are the characters that are kind of most interesting to me. And I will say a lot of my characters sort of have a good heart, even though they
Mm.
might be on the margins of society or even on the other side of the margin. But and when it comes to character, I don't know how the other writers feel about this, but like I try not to overthink my characters. Like I overthink my plots. Like I think about plot a lot and structure and architecture of that.
Mm.
But characters for me are something that like I got to find a feeling for them and I got to get inside them in a way. And to me, they're better sort of expressed organically than mechanically for me.
Mhm. Okay, well, thank you. And now we're going to hear from our last book, Murder at Arley, from Alyssa Maxwell.
A quick setup. Harry and Elizabeth Lear were basically the it couple of the Gilded Age. Everybody thought they were wildly happy. They were the toast of every ball. And the truth was they hated each other, absolutely hated each other. So in Murder at Arley, Bessie, as they called her, is just convinced that Harry's trying to kill her. And nobody will believe her because of, what everybody thinks about them. So she's got Emma coming back to Arley and hiding in the window curtains so she could overhear just every ordinary conversation between the two of them and know the truth about their relationship. So this is at the breakfast table. I hoped you slept well, Mrs. Lear inquired of Harry, cordially enough. Do you? I'm surprised you care, he quipped in return. A noisy slurp reached my ears, making me wrinkle my nose in distaste. After the hash you made of our evening last night, good God, woman, I don't know how I'll show my face among our friends and acquaintances for the remainder of the season. Whatever are you talking about, Harry? We had a perfectly lovely time at Rosecliff last night. Did we? You with your stupid questions and mundane conversation? It's a miracle you didn't put everyone to sleep. You're being unfairly critical and you know it. No, I'm not. And that dress you wore, hideous. My grandmother wouldn't have worn such a monstrosity. Good heavens, Harry, can I do nothing right in your eyes? You can advance me some money. I'm short this month. You're always short. A man has expenses. What do you expect me to live on? Your allowance is more than adequate. For whom? A beggar? I should have known better than to marry a woman as miserly and dour as you. Why, you resent my even having the slightest bit of amusement. Amusement, is that what you term it? Carousing, drinking, gambling, buying chunks of clothing you don't need? We cannot go on this way, Harry. You're quite right, my dear. I cannot go on being the most ill-used husband of the 400 and continue to suffer in silence. If people only knew the truth. Shall I tell all of society? What would your mother think? That her daughter possessed no concept of wifely duties? Is this how she raised you, Bessie? Is it? Enough. Mrs. Lear's weary sigh drifted to me through the layers of silk and damask between us. Please spare me any more of your haranguing. How much do you need? He named a sum that made me shudder. I expected Mrs. Lear to protest vehemently, to simply refuse. Very well, she gave another sigh, this one wafting with defeat. I'll write you a check. You can cash it in town. I prefer the cash now. Something in her must have snapped, for she retorted with barely restrained fury. I haven't got it on hand, Harry, so you'll simply have to make do. I heard another drag of a chair, followed by the swish of skirts along the carpet, then rapid clattering steps in the hallway. Within moments they returned, first clacking, then thudding when she reached the carpet again. Here, now leave me alone. Gladly, my dear. I have places to be this morning anyway. Heavier footsteps announced Harry Lear's retreat. I waited a long moment before shifting the curtain slightly and peeking out. Mrs. Lear sat at the table, her chin in her hand. Her husband's breakfast lay abandoned across from her. I slipped into the seat beside hers. His demands for money never cease, she said after a moment. My husband has an insatiable hunger for all of life's finer things with no capacity for earning them. That is why he needed me. King Lear, some call him. She chuckled grimly. Have you ever heard that? King Lear, with society as his domain and me as his pawn. I'm so sorry, I said. It's humiliating having someone witness his greed and cruelty, but I needed you to hear it if you're to believe my husband is capable of murder. To be fair, nothing I had overheard convinced me of that. That Harry Lear was a cad and a wastrel had been made evident. That no woman deserved to be shackled to a man like him, of that I had no doubt. But a murderer?
Cool. I missed one detail at the beginning. Were you talking about a real couple that you based
Yes,
these on?
yes. Harry and Elizabeth Lear were a real couple. And what inspired me to write the story was a beautiful portrait of her that hangs in the Elms in Newport, Rhode Island, in the ballroom. And it is absolutely gorgeous. And when I saw this painting, I just needed to know more about this glamorous, confident, just amazingly gorgeous woman. And this is what I found out, that her husband was just, he was a grifter and a con man and married her completely for her money. So that's what I do. I combine, what's really happened, what really happened with these people at the time, and then I weave a fictional murder mystery around them.
Wow. It just makes me so glad to live today I was never a member of any society. I didn't really have to care about what people think. So I could have gotten divorced at any point if I wanted to, and nobody could tell me I couldn't.
Right.
It just seems crazy that, this woman's got such breeding and such background and such money, and she still can't
She was also Catholic, and her mother was very devout. So she swore she would never divorce her husband until her mother died.
And then did she divorce him?
No, she didn't. She had somebody that she had fallen in love with, but broke it off because her mother was still alive. And when her mother finally died, she learned that this man had passed away. So she just stayed with Harry until he died.
Yeah. She probably figured it at that point.
I mean, they lived together, they traveled together, they put up the facade for about 30 years.
That sounds exhausting. We have a question for you from Christina. Do you do anything special to get yourself in the story or time period?
Well, I have so many resources for Newport. Like you mentioned, my husband is from there, so we have, all kinds of photos and family history and things like that. But to really put me in the mindset, I just do the research. I read a book called King Lear and the Gilded Age, which is by Elizabeth Lear. So I actually, what I read was really taken, not verbatim, but the attitudes that he had toward her and she toward him were really taken from the book or inspired by the book. So, I'm putting my words in their mouths, but the attitudes were already there.
Right. So you do an intense amount of research for like Murder at the Breakers, and you said you did that as you were setting up the series. You were setting up the world of your book. So you approached this Newport series as a series. Did you approach the Lady's Maid series as a series as well?
Yeah, I did. That was actually an idea that my editor came up with. He wanted a Downton Abbey-ish theme with a mystery twist. So, yeah.
Oh, interesting. And I don't have the discipline not to ask about making Murder at the Breakers into a movie. How did that happen, and what was it like?
Well, that happened because one of the executive producers toured the Breakers one day right before the pandemic and found the book in the gift shop. And he had been looking for something. He had been looking for a project for specifically Hallmark set in Newport. So he bought the book and he read it, and shortly after got in touch with my agent, and then the pandemic happened. So it actually took years. I think it took about 5 years before it actually, became a movie.
Yeah, well, you and Isabella, you know all about that.
Yeah,
Hurry up and wait. That's how it
right,
goes.
right.
Okay, well, we don't have any other questions from the audience, and I have some round robin questions for all of you. Quickly, plotter or pantser, or not quickly. We have plenty of time. We'll start with you, Alyssa.
Oh, a plotter, absolutely. The thought of sitting down to a blank screen with no kind of guide map just terrifies me. So I really hash out a lot of detail beforehand. And then each day I sit down and I know what kind of scene I'm going to write. And I allow myself to make changes and, to allow the characters to react and do maybe things I hadn't thought of. But, the basic structure is there for me.
Okay, and Jeffrey, plotter or pantser? Well, I know you're a plotter. You write these
I'm,
ridiculously long outlines that I can't even
I
think
do.
about.
I'm only comfortable. I'm comfortable doing that. Joyce Carol Oates said you can't write the first sentence until you know what the last sentence is. I may be paraphrasing, but the sentiment is well taken. You need to know where you're going, and I do long outlines, too long, I think, but I would say unnecessarily long because there's some variation. But I'm comfortable doing that, and there's whatever works for you works. But I do like my outlines.
Okay, and Lou?
I do ridiculously long outlines too, and I'm the same ways. But I end up throwing out a lot of it as I go too. I mean, like Alyssa said, like you've got to be open to the changes, but I can't really get started until I have a lot of information in my head.
And Isabella, when you're not writing with Jeffrey and have to outline everything, do you were you a plotter or a pantser?
Also a plotter. It's one of the reasons that Jeff and I are able to work well together.
Oh, very good. And here's a tough question to try and summarize all of you, but where do you think the publishing industry is? I mean, what are the significant issues in the publishing industry right now? It's like, are hardbacks going away? Is trade paperbacks the way to go? Should we all publish independently? Are the major publishers got too much influence, not enough influence? What do you think? And with an aim toward, what would you want to tell authors who are just starting out? What might be things for them to keep in mind? Okay, Alyssa. So.
Boy, I don't think the publishers know the answer to that question. I really don't. I mean, I've seen authors go from having, the hardback and then trade paperback, year apart to they're cutting out the second editions and they're just going with either a hardback or a trade paperback. Um, I just don't have the answer to that question of where they're going. I'm not someone who's probably going to self-publish. I would never say never, but right now it's just not. I just see so much work going into that, so much money, so much time. I'd rather be writing. So, I hope I hope the publishers, are staying in business for a while yet. What would I tell somebody starting out? I think you really have to think hard about what kind of an author you want to be. Do you want the structure of a publisher, or do you want the freedom of self-publishing? There's good and bad in both. But I think you need to know going in which you want to be, and understand that if you're indie publishing, that you need to be really good at promotion, or you know what, you need to be good at promotion either way, because it's not always going to be done for you.
True. And Jeffrey?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, we can look at the stats. Readership is down. We're up against these incredibly strong and fierce creative competitions, I guess we'd say, streaming TV, of which, and network TV. I'm involved in both of those, but I, understand that it's a shorter attention span world now, and we have to understand that. But I think back, and I tell my students this, two things. One, think back to Moby Dick, which no, I never finished. I'll be honest with that. There's too much whale stuff in it. But there was that great scene where the Christian brothers are basically, recruiting crew people, and the heathen Queequeg comes up, And they say,
Mhm.
no, 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 sir, you must be a good Christian to sail on our ship. And then he points in the movie with Gregory Peck, it was a barrel floating in the harbor. But in fact, in the book, it was a little spot of tar. And he took his harpoon and threw it right through the middle of that speck of tar. And the brothers looked at each other and said, in your case, sir, we'll make an exception. And of course, the point being that if you're good, if you tell a good story, there will be a market for you. So that's my number one thing I tell my students. So think about it. Tell a good story. Number two, take your time. I think most people want to be traditionally published. You want to have it may be a slightly alternative publisher. I'm with both Thomas and Mercer, Amazon, and with Putnam, and then a backlist with other companies. But that it's still quote traditional publishing. And take your time. Spend a lot of time working on the book. Spend a lot of time revising the book, and then spend a lot of time trying to place the book, find an agent, talk to publishers, travel as we all do, apparently, all of us, to
Mhm.
the wonderful events and make connections. And if you're good with the harpoon and that little spot of tar, if I can belabor the metaphor just a bit more, there will be an audience for a good story.
Cool. Lou?
I kind of agree with Jeffrey. I think, readership is the big issue facing writers. I mean, I'm kind of demoralized by how few people read and how I think that smartphone is going to have effects that we can't even imagine yet about how it's rewiring the way people, take in content, that we even call it content anymore kind of
Mhm.
offends me in a way. So, like, I think, I'm glad I grew up when I did and not, 20 years younger in some ways, because I feel like my brain works the way it should. But you just walk through an airport and everyone's on their phone, and maybe they're reading a book, but a lot of them you can tell are on TikTok, and they're
Mhm.
flipping through things. And there was just a story in the New York Times a while ago about when it even comes to storytelling on film, the new thing is 1 minute long episodes of telenovelas. So it's like you get a whole season in 30 minutes, and that's just to me like I don't know where that ends, and so I'm kind of disheartened by that. But I do tell my students the same way that Jeffrey does. I think, if you're good and you're passionate about it, and if that's what you have to do, there's always going to be a place for you. So you got to pursue that.
Good. Isabella?
Well, actually, I saw a question popped up about because of everything that we're all saying, is writing cinematically helpful? So I'll just go right into that and say yes. I know I write very visually. Jeff does too. Many people have said, I see your story playing out like a movie in my head, and I really think that as writers, we have adjusted to this sort of streaming world. The chapters are shorter and punchier, and we make it a habit of using action to express characterization. So that way, it's not a leisurely character study that goes on the whole time. It's what they're doing that is revealing who they are, and the choices they make and things like that. So I do think that that the milieu has had an impact on how we all write.
Good point. Well, to that end, to writing business, we have a question from the audience. How many drafts do you do before you feel good about it? Anyway.
Well, if I can jump in, I adhere to Hemingway's comment that there, and by the way, he apparently did not say write drunk and edit sober. I have to
Damn it.
explore. I
I've
have to
been doing
explore
that the
that
whole
more.
time.
That may have been myself earlier that I said that I just don't recall, probably because I was drunk. But Hemingway did say there are no great writers, there are only great rewriters, and I will rewrite. Both Isabel and I have done this, and for my own books, probably on the computer 30 times. Then I print out. We both print out. I do separately. Print because we process the written word differently on paper. And then this is something I am quite insistent with my students on, and I do every time. When the book is done, absolutely finished, I listen to it, and it's not done because Word has a function of read aloud, and I will find all sorts of things, clearly typos that I missed, but also some conceptual and even developmental things. So I I can't. It's hard for me to let go of a book because I just want to keep revising, and so I would that would be my advice: rewrite, rewrite, rewrite until you can't stand it anymore, and then rewrite some more.
Yeah. Well, who was it who said great works? I mean, works of art are never finished, only abandoned.
Oh, well
Also,
said.
I will say there is a danger to rewriting too much, I think. Like I do 4 or 5 drafts, and I think sometimes if you rewrite and rewrite, this is for some writers, you end up like sanding off the interesting, crooked parts. And like some of the things that make storytelling and fiction wonderful for me is the stuff that doesn't perfectly make sense, just like in real life. And so revising sometimes can flatten it out in a way that you have to be careful of, I think.
I think if I can jump in just once more briefly, I think Stephen King said that if he rewrites too much, it ends up sounding like a press release from like the Romanian Department of Agriculture, and it's better to maybe less is more. I wish I could give it up, and I think my writing would benefit if I did that a little bit, Lou. I agree with you completely. But sometimes, if you've got to be addicted to something,
Yeah.
why not rewriting?
Yeah. I don't have distinct drafts like some authors do. I'm like constantly editing. So by the time I'm done with the book and ready to do a semi-final read through, it's kind of the same draft I've been working on for months. And then I find a lot, and then I print it out and read it again. So, in a way that's kind of like maybe 2 or 3 drafts, but it just, again, I edit constantly, which I know they say don't do that because you never get your book written, but it works for me. I've never missed a deadline. So,
Oh,
go
you're
figure.
doing something right.
Yeah.
Okay. Lauren had a question. Imagine you couldn't write a mystery and had to write a book in some other genre. What type of book would you write?
Historical fiction.
That's cheating, Alyssa.
Historical.
Yeah, it's cheating, Alyssa.
I know.
Oh,
It's
I'll
different.
jump
It
in
is
here.
different. It's very different.
No, very briefly, I'd like to be a millionaire. So romantasy.
Yeah. I would like to
Really?
take a crack at romantasy too. I mean, I think like that's a fascinating genre. That's the one genre people are reading and it's just blowing up. So it's fascinating to me.
Isabella, what
I
would
would
you write?
probably go dystopian.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
I would write horror. Absolutely. I'd craft if I was capable of it, I'd craft the perfect haunted house mystery, but I'm positive I am not capable of it. So that's why. We had a question for Jeffrey and Isabella about collaborating.
Mhm.
Is it an equal partnership? And we're assuming yes, but Isabella, was it a little intimidating to start writing with somebody of Jeffrey's status? I mean, for most of us, we would find that hard.
Well, I mean,
Okay,
here's where I'm
so
looking. Here's where I'm
go ahead,
looking
Jeff.
behind me. Like, what status? I'm sorry, we're all writers. If you publish a book, you're an author. That's all there is to it. So I just have been. I'm older than all of you guys probably collectively. So I've just been at it a little bit longer. But let me just say it right up front. This was a 50-50 collaboration. I know Jim Patterson and his arrangement. This is not that. This is 100% 50-50 if those numbers work. So that's the way this situation got started, and that's the way it has always been.
And she does have a sharpshooting medal, so she's probably not intimidated.
I better be careful. Exactly.
Yeah.
And as
And
far as writing with him, to answer your question, really no, because Jeff made it so very egalitarian from the very beginning. At first, it wasn't. I mean, okay. So I mean, I've mentioned this before in that if Jeff wanted to be a diva, he could. I mean, he's sold 50 million books, literally, and he's written 50 books and well over 100 short stories and Grandmaster twice and all these things. So he has the chops. But And this is something, and I think everyone who really knows Jeff understands this about him. He is very humble by nature. He's a very kind and humble person. And so from the very beginning, it was clear we declared a no ego zone. And Jeff came right out in the beginning. He's like, just edit my stuff. And so we ruthlessly edit each other. And we both sort of subjugate whatever we are thinking in service of the story, which is in service of the reader. So that is really the master we serve is the reader. And whatever we need to do to make it a better experience for the reader, we will do that. And it's just been amazingly, an incredibly, a great experience.
And I'll just, if I can jump in very quickly, if anybody out there is thinking about co-writing or co-authoring, we've had a very good experience. I've only done one short story before this. It was kind of a giveaway thing. And Isabella, I don't think had written anything. This is the first novel we've done. But the number one rule is it has to be fun. Writing is tough to start with, you know? And so imagine the dynamics of doing it with somebody that is not really on your same page. And, you know, we've had some creative differences, but we always get it worked out. We've never had a single fight. And I have to say, the Seinfeld jokes flow quite freely. So that was a good sign.
Cool. Lauren wants to know for everyone, for crafting your mysteries, how do you find a balance of giving the reader enough clues that it's satisfying without giving away the ending too soon? So, Alyssa, how do you find that balance?
I don't know. It's luck, I guess. Yeah, very carefully. You know, when you're sprinkling in things, you don't want to make your killer look too guilty or too innocent. I think that's the mistake I've seen, you know, here and there, is maybe everyone else has suspicion thrown at them, but the one actually guilty person is not made out to look like they're hiding anything, and that's almost a dead giveaway. That's probably your killer. So yeah, I would say you have to sprinkle in enough guilt on everybody. I always give everybody something to hide so that they can all look guilty. And that actually helps me later on if I decide, well, I don't want that person to be my culprit. I think it's more fun that it's this person. I don't have to go back and change a lot of things because I've sprinkled in enough guilt along the way, you know, enough clues that possibly could make them the guilty party.
Okay. Jess?
Well, that's kind of like saying, you know, I want to invest in the stock market. What do I do? And well, buy stocks when they're cheap and sell them when they're worth a lot. You know, we don't quite know. It's a wonderful question, and it's what we wrestle with every single minute that we're writing. I mean, I found something quite irritating. Readers are really smart, and you know, do I do a double bluff? Do I do a single bluff? Do I do a triple bluff? Do I make this character look guilty and therefore they're really not? Do I make the character look guilty and they really are? And so, you know, again, a lot of books, I've written a lot of novels and a lot of short stories. And I every morning wake up, I write every day, every morning wake up. And that's one of the things in my head. Have I given away the store, or am I withholding too much? And not to discourage you, it's just something that you have to, you know, think about and, you know, put yourself in the mind of the reader and then see what you think is going to work.
Lou, how do you?
I mean, Jeff made me think about when he's talking about do I bluff, do I double bluff? It made me think about a magician, and it's kind of like the idea that you're having to figure out how to keep the audience engaged on multiple levels so that the clue is not the end all be all. Because if it's just about finding the clue, then it's not going to be very interesting. So you've got to find ways to become a compelling storyteller so that it's, you know, the clue becomes hidden in the background more than being the be all end all.
Isabella?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna mix around the metaphor and everything else. So, you know, like when Lou was talking about a magician, I was immediately thinking about, and this is something that Jeff and I talk about all the time, it's misdirection. It's all, oh, look at this hand, meanwhile, and now I'm going to get really ugly with it. I'm going to distract you with this hand, and this one's going to have a blade going right between your ribs. Um, it's like a prison yard shiv, man. It just goes in so fast, and you don't even know it's hit you until it does. And but Jeff and I love to do this. We are like we misdirect all the time, and it's about the twists and really a perfectly executed twist. This is how you know if you've done it right is if the reader says, I didn't see that coming, but I should have.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah, those are the most satisfying when you're like, oh no, I didn't see that coming, but now that I see it, it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So Robin asks, speaking of editing, do you edit the F-bombs and other words, adding versus subtracting? She says, personally, I prefer them as an emphasis versus every other word kind of thing. Of course, Alyssa probably doesn't have any in her books.
No. Yeah, I write historical cozy mysteries, so no. Yeah.
Don't have to even worry about it.
No.
Well, I think that I'm sorry, you can
No,
go.
go ahead. Go ahead, Isabel.
I was going to say for me, that's part of characterization. So certain characters will use profanity more than others. And certain characters will have certain turns of phrases or types of profanity that they will use. And so that kind of goes to that. And like what I guess Robin was saying, talking about that, it is a seasoning, it's a spice, and you don't want to be too heavy-handed with it.
And Lou, were you going to say something?
I agree. I agree with all that. She stole it. Thanks. Perfect.
Well, and again, it's for me, it's all about the reader. What are the reader's expectations? Now, we write adult fiction, and if I were writing young adult, it might be different. Well, it would definitely be different. But a New York City policewoman, she gets grazed like a 9mm slug goes through her arm. She's not going to say, "Gosh darn, that's painful." It's like there's credibility. And I'm sorry, put on any HBO show, and I talk about because I've got kids, ranging from ages up to 19, from like 6 through 19, and not the 6-year-old, of course, but the middle teenagers and the older teenagers. There's nothing they haven't been exposed to. It's like, who cares? And so when it becomes gratuitous, out it goes. When it becomes obtrusive, so that you focus on it, out it goes. But you just have to think about what is going to draw the reader into this experience and make them forget everything else and be there with that New York City policewoman, or be there with the terrorist if you're writing from the other point of view. And so that's kind of my standard, and a lot different when I started again 40 some odd years ago, which I hate to admit, but it was a much let's say tamer time back then. The F word and others were pretty difficult. Now, I will say there are some words I just don't go near, and no reason to even bring them up, but there's some things that I just know instinctively are offensive. Like in my books and the books Isabella and I are writing, we never hurt a child. No children hurt. No animals are hurt. Zero. No sexual violence. And writers can write about that if they want. I'm just not really comfortable with that because I don't really like reading that myself that much. But our first book in the series, Fatal Intrusion, spiders were a motif. Not a single spider was injured in the making of that book.
Good to know. Good to know. And Chris asks, for all authors, to Jeffrey's point about the streaming competition, do you think cinematically when you craft scenes, are you conscious about the audience's short attention spans due to so much sensory input, or do you figure they want to immerse themselves in the book?
Well, if I can just jump in real quickly.
Yes.
I'm very sensitive to that because of what I write. I mean, I write basically, and Isabella and I are writing, we're writing, streaming TV. It's dialogue oriented, action oriented. I mean, this isn't Proust, and I mean, I read literary fiction. I read Man Booker. I don't have the skill to write that, but people who read that are still going to continue to read that. That's not, I think, where we're losing readership. I think we're losing readership among the fringes. But I'm just comfortable reading and writing fast-paced thrillers. And I think that's what there's a huge market for that.
I think
Anybody?
with what I write, I think my audience wants more absorption into the world. I think that's what they're reading them for. They want to see the mansions and the clothes and, you know, whatever the background, you know, their surrounding. I think it's all part of, you know, the appeal for the book. So I don't worry about it too much. I just try to keep my scenes, you know, no more than, you know, like 4 or 5 typewritten pages. I think you do need to keep them shortish, but other than that, no, I don't. I'm not worried about that. I don't think that's my audience is looking for, you know, that like streaming kind of cinematic excitement. They want to go back into that world.
Okay. And anybody else?
I mean, I think that's a good point. It's just the idea of being aware of your audience and what they expect, what they want. And also, I think on the flip side of that is being aware of what you're good at. And for me, one of the things I'm really good at is language and image. And so I'm not gonna not do that. Like, so I need to make sure that's part of my, you know, it's my best pitch in some ways. But that doesn't mean I also can't be aware of the story and making sure that functions very, very effectively as well. But again, I think it just kind of depends on who your audience is and kind of knowing yourself and knowing your audience.
Okay. Well, we've gone a little over on time, which we always do, so that's not a big deal. But so real quick, just one question for all of you. What's next? What is next in your plans? Alyssa?
Another Gilded Newport mystery. I have Murder at Rosecliff comes out next year about this time, and I'm starting on book 15.
Very cool. Jeff?
I'm writing a new Lincoln Rhyme book, the character from The Bone Collector, that will be published in May of next year. And Isabella and I are doing the third in the Sanchez and Heron series. And then I'm writing a new Coulter Shaw book. Coulter Shaw is the character in the Tracker CBS TV show Tracker. So that will be out, oh my God, in 2027. And I'm doing an original Amazon story. I write original stories for Amazon Original Stories, not a obscure name. It kind of tells it like it is. It's called Bulletproof. That will be out in around April of next year. And then my fourth short story collection called Dead Ends will be out. And since she always makes me feel like a slacker now, when we turn to Isabella, she can tell you about the 27 books she has coming out next year. So
No, you should not feel that way. Jeff is really one of the busiest writers you can possibly imagine. He's so prolific. It's unbelievable. But I have an unusual year next year. That's all. 2026 is going to be pretty amazing. So I finally get to go back and I get to write like the fourth book that was part of the first series. When I first got published, I had a 3-book contract. And I wrote those 3 books and then switched publishers. And so I never got a chance to write any more of those, but now my publisher's picking that series up. So I'm sort of retooling and working through those original 3, and then I'm writing the 4th. And then there'll be a couple more after that. But so that's very exciting that those 3 sort of get to come out, and then a 4th, and then obviously my book with Jeff. So that'll be a total of 5 novels in 2026.
Yeah, it's okay. Isabella always makes us feel like an underachiever. Lou,
Wow.
what's next for you?
Well, I got a TV show I wrote for last winter is premiering next week on FX.
Oh,
It's
wow.
called The Lowdown, and it was created by Sterling Harjo, who did Reservation Dogs, and it stars Ethan Hawke. It's a 1-hour kind of crime drama with humor. So I'm really excited about that.
Very cool. Okay, well, before we sign off here, I have to say these are tonight's winners So if you think this is one of these is your email address, then write us at Rogue Women Writers. Oh, I didn't do that right. It's roguewomenwriters@gmail.com, and let us know, and I will take care of that. And join us next month on October 20th to talk with authors Elle Devine, Daryl Wood Gerber, Kate Belly, and our own rogue Jenny Milchman. So thank you so much to these amazing authors tonight. I'm so glad you joined us, and I think this was a really fun event.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for the wonderful, great questions, great welcoming us in, and always a wonderful group. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much. Thank the rest of you too.
Thanks,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
It's great.
Thank you.